Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Like and subscribe.
Welcome to the Sit, Walk, Work podcast, a show about paying attention. My name is Dominic and I'm your host, and today is a guided meditation. And what you can expect is that the practice will open up with a brief recap, followed by the actual practice itself. If you find today's episode valuable, please share with your friends and family, and feel free to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. The show will begin after the following chimes.
Epictetus, in his discourses, says, "In this way, we must understand how laughable it is to say, 'Tell me what to do.' What advice could I possibly give? No, a far better request is to train my mind to adapt to any circumstance. And in this way, if circumstances take you off script, you aren't desperate for a new prompt." Looking for certainty in a sea of change is a common occurrence for most of us. I think of meditation and practices like what you're doing today to be opportunities for you to deal and manage the uncertainty of life and your experience living this life. And in that way, become the type of people that live up to the quote that's described. I know this is true for myself. I've been training jiu-jitsu a lot recently, and that is probably the most uncertain I've been in a long time. I don't actually know how any real training session is going to go. I have a general idea, but everything is up in the air and open for debate. As far as who I'll be sparring with, what I'll be learning, the conditions that are set are well out of my comfort zone. So it's forced my mind to learn how to adapt to the conditions, to become the type, so that I can start to garnish and gain the type of mindset that allows me to work with any circumstances. And so I set all of this up because I want you to consider that as we practice today. This is your time to train your mind so it too can be more adaptable in a sea of uncertainty. The first part of your practice where we start is for you to begin to make yourself comfortable, seated, lying down, or lying back, whatever is going to help you to be slightly attentive throughout the practice, right? It's an interesting thing to hold our attention and move it in certain ways. And so one of the things that I like, one of the approaches that I like is to see if I can just lightly hold my attention and be present with whatever's happening in the practice. And there can often be a lot going on there. So as we begin to make the transition from whatever took place prior to this moment right now, to the start of your practice right now, I ask you to let yourself kind of be with that for a moment. Just notice what you're coming into practice with, the way the body feels, the quality of your mind, what's on top at the top of that mind, or the way your breath feels. It's just a very loose and general observation, kind of setting the foundation for what I'm going to ask you to do for the rest of practice, is to take this stance of neutrality and curiosity about the things that are occurring that ultimately make up your day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience. And for today's practice, it's this idea that as we move throughout our days and our lives, we are often in search of some level of certainty. And yet we're doing that amidst a sea of changing elements. And our practice is a place that is helping to cultivate a mind that is adaptable to this sea of change. And in building that adaptability, you ultimately create the certainty you're looking for in these changing conditions. And I came across this idea personally because it's something I've been struggling with as I learn some new activities that I've never tried before. I'm met with this sense of wanting to know what's going to happen. So it's forced me to kind of train my mind to be a bit more flexible. And so that's where we're headed in today's practice, is to see how we can manage some of the changes that'll come up. Observing the way the body feels. Notice specifically if you're holding tension or if there's discomfort present. Our bodies have a kaleidoscope of experiences that they're going through. So just take a moment to softly scan from the crown of your head down to your toes and just get a sense for right now what and how the body feels. Noticing the things that immediately grab your attention. Noticing if there's any judgments or thoughts passed over what you're noticing right now. And even notice what happens as you rest your attention in these spaces. And at first, depending on where you are in the practice and kind of how things are, things can be very distracting, even as you're trying to just simply notice how the body is feeling today. You might have thoughts that are interfering with your focus or sounds that might be interfering with your focus. And that's okay when you find that your attention is being redirected or distracted. Instead of resisting against that, turn that obstacle into a part of the process and allow your attention to go to the place that's pulling it and observe it with the same curiosity I'm asking you to hold on to for this entire practice, at least until it dissolves, and then redirect your attention back to whatever you're focused on. Beginning now to feel your breath. When I say feel your breath, find in your body where your breath shows up. Typically, that's really down low in the pelvis, the belly, or the upper part of the chest, or in some cases, all three. And in observing your breath, even when trying to do this from a place of neutrality. It's almost instinctive that the breath might shift or change simply under the weight of our attention. And that's okay. We try to avoid it, but feel that rhythm of your breath, the natural rising and falling of the breath as it comes in and it comes out. It acts as a model for us, for life, for how we can learn to deal with the challenges of things. The breath acts as your natural rhythm section. When the rate of breath increases, the nervous system reacts differently than when the rate of breath slows. It acts as a kind of accelerator and a deaccelerator. The breath is our first line of defense towards knowing more about what we're feeling and what's happening in the moment. So, is the breath full on the inhale and the exhale? Is it flowing naturally for you? Are you finding challenges taking a breath in or letting a breath go? And can you open up this moment to just simply receiving the breath, becoming more aware of the start point of the breath? Can you feel into where the breath originates? Feeling the moments of stillness that rest at the top and the bottom of each breath. Allowing the space for a bit of reverence of this breath to kind of enter the practice. Because the breath that you receive returns, and that's at its core, that's a beautiful, deep thing to be grateful for. The grace of receiving the next inhale breath and being breathed into by the life around you, forming this quality of appreciation, because that's what we can do with our attention when we choose to hold it in such a way. We can cultivate things around it. letting your attention begin to expand a bit wider than just the breath. And it's starting to notice the other elements or objects of your experience. We often sit in the seat of being the witness to what's happening in each moment. And what are we witnessing? The sounds and the smells and the residual taste in our mouth and the sensations in our body and the breath moving through us and the thoughts running about. All of these find this dance with the same inherent qualities you've been observing in your breath. Each one alternating between its opportunity at the focus of your attention. Stream together quickly enough and they feel like a run on sentence, but let your attention rest on any one of them in any moment and you see them in their individual, changing, dissolving nature. And it's contrasting these changing objects against the steadiness that also is existent in your experience. That as you observe these things changing, the space from which you're observing it is consistent, steady, it doesn't change. It's a bit grounded. Feeling and sensing in this moment that there's enough space for not only the objects arising, but every new object that arises in each changing moment. See if your attention can drop back and notice that. Get a sense for what that feels like in the breath and in the body. And in noticing the elements of stillness and steadiness and spaciousness and emptiness, even that are present. Notice and what happens when your attention focuses from that to the parts of the practice that are changing. And it's almost as if you can kind of feel the difference between the changing parts of your experience and the consistent, steady parts. And allowing the attention to simply see if it can hold both the changing parts of your experience and the unchanging parts at the same time, simultaneously, kind of feeling what it's like to attempt that. Noticing along the way the parts of the practice that you found yourself gravitating towards, wanting to kind of hold on to. And notice how there's parts of the practice that maybe you just would rather not be present or to avoid. And it's this nature of kind of avoidance and clinging, as we call it, that when strung together over time, our self is kind of derived out of that. And in the way that our breath changes and our sensations change, so too does the version of self we are in any moment. And if everything is shifting and changing, our steadiness can be found in our ability to connect to the parts of us that don't change, that stay consistent, and to build our certainty from that space. Noticing the ways in which, even in this moment, you're slightly different than maybe how you started practice. And in some ways, can you find a bit of subtle gratitude for the changes that are constantly taking place behind the scenes? For through those changes, new opportunities are created and growth is enabled. In the last few minutes of practice, let your attention begin to receive the sounds around you, to loosen and let the objects you've been working with thus far kind of drop back and allow the ambient noise around you to become center stage. And in the way that I asked you to receive your breath earlier, I ask the same of you to receive sound. To notice the way you don't search or look for sound, it just arrives. The patterns of the sound, the rhythm of it. Some sounds are steady and constant in a room, others more fleeting and changing. Some sounds have an agitating quality, and some a rather neutral one.
as we begin to close out practice. Rest your attention on your eyes, your visual field, space behind your closed eyelids. Take a breath in and gently allow the eyes to open as we bring practice to a close today. And I want to thank you all for being here. As I always say, it doesn't work if you don't. So
that's the beauty of it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I invite you to check out my Substack, where we are building a community of like-minded individuals to discuss all topics related to the idea of paying attention. I hope to see you there. But until then, with metta may you be well.
Like and subscribe.